Okay, this video is going to be about describing the contents of my broke box. I had a couple guys in the other videos ask me about these and to describe some of these. I probably won't be able to get through all of those. There's a lot of them in here, and I've accumulated quite a bit over the past couple of years. I think this is 2 or 3 years worth of manufacturing errors and rejects. But I'll try to get through as many as I can. It's been pretty cold, so I got a fire going. It's going pretty good. The winds are becoming light and variable, so what that means is what used to be a good place to sit 1 minute won't be the next minute. So if I pause, that means the smoke is in my eyes and stuff. And I'll just continue when the smoke clears. Anyway, let's see what I got in here. Make sure I've got this in focus. Let's see, this is a Scotch Bluff type point that I rejected because I didn't like the flaking on it. Now, a lot of these are, you know, they're fairly good points, and my kids will come in here and they'll pick pieces out of this box and, you know, work some of these points, finish them or fix them. Usually they're in here trying to fix them. Now this one can't be fixed, of course. I broke off one of the ears on this bell point. And this is, most of this stuff is Texas chert. This is Texas root beer chert. So when I broke that ear off, I just threw it in here. It can still be made into another point. This material here was kind of hard to work also. I couldn't get nice flaking, so I just tossed it in there. Now some of these are preforms. I'm not sure what that was. This looks like raw material. Another piece of root beer. This is a preform. It's in here as a reject probably because it was too small or too odd for a hunting point. It was too wide and too short. I can always make something else out of it. That's an obvious snap during manufacture, probably while doing the notches in the base. There's also an issue with a crack on the margin that sometimes happens. Now those cracks will be in there. You might not be able to see them when you're doing your percussion work, but once you like this here, when I snapped it here, it revealed that error there by, you know, this crack came across and took some of this edge off, but it also revealed that manufacturing error, that crack in here. I probably wouldn't have seen that until much later if it hadn't snapped right there. Another snap, probably a, you know, early stages of a Clovis or a Paleo type. Looks like raw stone. This one had a lot of concrete in it, and you can see there's quite a bit of step fracturing going on. So I got it to the rough shape, and I just looked at it and said, no, I'm not going to continue. Those step fractures will require a lot of effort to remove. This is very tough raw stone, and it'll get much more narrow. I can make something else out of it later. I can trim back the space and make a hunting point out of it or something. This was just an experiment. I think this was given to me by a friend of mine. I think he just gave it to me because, you know, he was experimenting with different shapes and he didn't want it, so I said, sure, I'll take it. Another Paleo type, probably one of my early attempts. Raw stone. Flaking's kind of messed up on it. It was starting to get too narrow, probably, so I just threw it in there. Early attempt at Clovis. Flutes are not too bad. This looks like heat treated. It's not a bad point, I just didn't like it, so I tossed it in there. Another early paleo type base. Another preform, very rough, raw stone, both of these. And the reason why, the way I can tell is it's just the texture of it. And the amount of concrete, and sometimes by the sound of the stone. But usually by the roughness, I can tell it's not been heat treated. It doesn't have a glossy look to it. And this is a, you know, double snap, probably while thinning the base. Sometimes it'll do that, especially on this raw stuff where you have to hit really hard. This material here is black chert from Texas. Early attempt, or an attempt at a Clovis or paleo type. This is just an attempt at a flake, arrowhead on a flake. I had the ridge going down the middle. Didn't like the way it was looking, so I just tossed it. Another tip snap. Tip snap from fluting attempt. It's not a bad point. It's a little bit wide. I didn't like it, so I threw it in there. Just experimenting with this shape. A lot of step fractures. Raw stone. This is one of my children made this off a flake. Experimental shape. I think I did this a long time ago. Turtle back in there, so I just tossed it. Attempt at an Eden point. I got some step fractures. That's probably why I tossed this one. Still functional. Still works as a knife. Sometimes I come in here and pick out a point if if it's handy. Use it as a scraper or something on a arrow that I'm working on, or I'll cut a notch or something. Usually I don't go into the broken box for tools unless it's right there where I'm working. Most of this material gets recycled into other points. This, all I had to do is sharpen the tip, and it can be used as a hunting point. I think that's wide enough. When I snap the tips off, I get kind of ticked and I toss them in there. I don't even rework them. Tip snap. Base snap. Georgetown raw chert. Nothing wrong with it. I can make another point out of it. Preform. I probably threw it in here because it was kind of rough texture, very difficult to nap. It feels like it, but it can still be used. Nothing wrong with that preform. Snap tip. I can make something out of it later if I wanted to. That's why I don't throw these in the trash. Other ear snapped off from this bell point. A lot of step fracturing. Didn't like it. Experimenting with this. It looks like a Garza type point from Texas, but the bezel notch is way too big. And of course the tip snapped off, so I tossed it. I think this is one of the New England or Pennsylvania style points I was attempting. A lot of step fractures, so I didn't like it. Same deal with this. This is made of rhyolite from Texas. Very difficult to nap. Didn't really like it. Mahogany obsidian. Kind of a California type point. Tip snapped off, so I tossed it. Broken tip. This one I was probably trying to make some barbs on here, and one of them came off, or one of them broke off, and I trimmed back the other one, and I said no, I'll just start again on this with another piece. But I can still use it. Like I said, I can still make a perdice out of it or something. Very tough raw Texas root beer type stuff. attempt out of Clovis, probably one of my first. Attempt out of Martindale, I guess. Raw Texas root beer. Georgetown chert, just a broken preform. Another Perdice attempt. Just broken in several places. Probably snapped the base and this part at the same time. Tip and base snapped at the same time while I was doing the notching. Paleo base. Yeah, just a simple outline made on a flake. I think one of my children might have made that. Beginnings of a drill. I can still work it, but I guess I was worried about that little area in there. I didn't want to get it down real thin, I guess, and have it break right there, so I tossed it. Broken obsidian tip, that happens a lot. Raw stone. Failed Perdice attempt. Failed preform. Failed preform, internal defect. It was probably a drill or Eden. Broken tip. Broken tip. Nice material, but I mean nice color, but very hard to nap. So I snapped it, probably hitting it really hard. The smoke is starting to get in my eyes. Let's see. Not sure what that is. Definitely tough raw stone. I got it fairly thin. San Patrice maybe. Not sure. Heat treated preform. It probably has internal fractures in it. That's why I didn't continue. It looks like it has some issues in it right here. Failed barb there. Just didn't like the way this was progressing, I guess. Very tough stone. Another, just a general outline made on a flake. Didn't see much potential in it, so I tossed it. Early paleo attempt. Broken preform. Broken tip. I'm just picking these out at random. This was I don't know, I guess I was going for an eccentric or something. Didn't like the step fracturing. Broken paleo base, broken during fluting, it looks like. Yeah, that's a fresh flake right there. Just real tough material. Didn't like it. Another preform, probably broke the barbs off. Unfinished preform. Probably didn't like the quality of the stone. Attempt at an Eden. This is Georgetown. It's not too bad, but I think what happened was I took the bite out of there and I didn't want to mess with it anymore. Another bite taken out. Otherwise it would have been a fairly good point. Step fracturing. I don't like the step fracturing. Just a preform, very tough material. I think this is rhyolite. This is a Pandale attempt by a friend of mine. He gave it to me after, you know, breaking the tip off, and I flaked it a little bit to try to get it started again, but I said no, it's Just a preform out of tough material. One of my children's points had a very nice Keo Cook heat treated. Early paleo attempt. Stone must have had issues. It's not a bad piece. I can still make a hunting point out of it or something. Attempt at an Edwards snap tip. Attempt at a paleo internal flaw, maybe. Big old stack right there. Failed preform. Another failed preform. Failed attempt at a Catahoula. A lot of step fracturing. Some of these barbs removed. I think this might have been one of my children's attempts at reworking one of my failed Perdice points. There's quite a few failed Perdice points in the box. Didn't like that one. It's a failed Perdice. Another failed Perdice. I snapped the tip off. Failed Edwards. Failed Perdice. Out of Alabates, raw. Failed star point, although I could still make one out of it. Tip break. Let's see. One of my children's points. Bell point, or no, I should say Shumla. A lot of step fracturing, so I didn't like it. Not sure, probably a New England style, or Northeast style I should say. Looks like one of these shoulders snapped. Let's see, failed attempt at a Von Leah. Northern Plains transitional. Let's see, one of my early attempts at paleo. Another broken Shumla. Not sure, but difficult material. Very difficult. Let's see. Overshot on blue glass. Hit right here. Overshot, took this corner off, so it was too small for hunting. I remember that one. Okay. Let's see. Probably a barb failure. Oh, one of my, it's a Clovis attempt. It's not bad. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. I just didn't like it. That flake here started the dive. This is heat treated. Nothing wrong with that point. I could half that point, make a display out of it if I wanted to. Another Eden, I believe. Didn't like the proportions, I guess. Snap preform, or first stage biface. Piece of Brazilian agate from a slab. Very, very nice material. I can make something else out of it. But I think I didn't like the proportions, so I just tossed it in there to work later. Coastal Plains chert, very, very nice color. I think I was almost done with it when it snapped. Looks almost done. Alabates preform, snapped. Probably an attempt at an Edwards snap, barb snap. Failed Perdice. This is a ground limestone point. From a limestone flake, believe it or not. I flaked this piece of, it might even be a piece of Cortex instead of limestone. flake that off. So it is made on a flake, but it's ground on this side. Didn't like it, so I tossed it. I guess a drill attempt still can do something with it. So a lot of these I could still use, Northeast style. Nothing really wrong with it. I'm not sure why I tossed this one. Maybe the base didn't look right to me. A lot of internal issues on this one. Okay, so it's been 20 minutes already. You get the idea, I guess. There's a beer bottle glass. Failed attempt. Failed elevates. Another failed elevates. Little Cahokia type point. I think the tip snapped off this and I reworked it, but still didn't like it. Attempt at a haze point. Lots of step fracturing anyway, and the base isn't right, so I tossed it. And it says a failed Edwards type. Right there you can see where this bar broke off. Another failed haze. Not sure what this is, just didn't like it, too thick or something. This one of the failed Utsi types. This is the Iceman, Arrowhead types. Looks too thick, probably snapped the tip off. Failed glass. I think this type of glass comes from the Perrier bottles. Took a real big bite out of it by mistake. Too much force. This is a flake, actually. It's probably not supposed to be in here. Failed Ellis. Okay, so that's about it. I think you guys get the idea. I only went through maybe 10% of it, or 20%. Okay. Hope that was educational. There's probably some points in here I'm going to take out and rework now that I see them. But not very many. I usually leave all this stuff for my kids to mess with. Okay, that's it.